I look forward to the month of May because that always to me means the Charleston Festival.
A place of great cultural interest and very beautiful.
Hello and welcome to Charleston Festival at Home. I'm Susanna Stevenson, Artistic Director for the Charleston Festival, and I'm here in the Charleston Kitchen. This is a place you would never normally see as part of the Charleston Festival unless you were one of the speakers, when it comes alive with the hum of food and conversation. Today's event is with Leïla Slimani, all about sex, lies, and her love of Virginia Woolf, who she describes as her best friend. I hope you've been enjoying these events as part of Charleston Festival at Home, and if you have, please consider making a donation to the Charleston Emergency Appeal. But now I hope you'll enjoy Sex, Lies and Wolf with Leïla Slimani, chaired by journalist, broadcaster and chair of the European Literature Network, Rosie Goldsmith.
Welcome everyone to the Charleston Festival at Home, and welcome to Leïla Slimani, who's in France, and I'm here in England. Leïla Slimani, before I give the full introduction to you and what you've written and what you do, we were hoping to meet in Charleston. Neither of us has actually been there. It's a great disappointment, isn't it?
Oh yes, it is. I was looking forward to come to meet you and to discover Charleston, but it's a time of disappointments, a lot of disappointments. I was supposed to go to New York in 2 weeks. I was supposed to go to the south of France to meet my readers. So we have to deal with so many disappointments now.
I know. Well, I'm sure we'll talk about that as well. But there have been a few positive aspects, I think, to lockdown as well. But to all of you out there who know Leïla Slimani, and to those of you who don't, I'm just going to give a short introduction and then we'll go on to talk about the main book of this session and what we would have been talking about, in fact, if we were side by side in real life. But the event is called Sex, Lies and Wolf. Now that's not actually the title of the book because it's Virginia Woolf that this session is referring to, and we'll talk about Virginia Woolf as well. So we have our guest, the Franco-Moroccan writer and journalist Leïla Slimani, and she's today one of the leading international voices and leading women's voices as well, not just on literature, but on women's rights and also very much on literature and what's happening in the world today. Now, her global best-selling novels include Lullaby, winner of the 2016 Prix Goncourt, and then Adele, which won the 2015 Mamounia Prize. Now, as well as writing about human rights in her novels, Leïla is also an activist and a winner of the Simone de Beauvoir Prize for Women's Freedom. Now, there are lots of prizes. You've had celebrity very, very quickly. And I must say, when I read Lullaby, which was the very first book I read, the first book for most people in English, translated by Sam Taylor, I didn't know anything about you, didn't know where you came from. I just read this as a really, really good book. And I was blown away by this book. And then suddenly all these things started to happen. You were everywhere. So how has life been for you the last 5 years? Really, it's been a phenomenal time for you, hasn't it?
Yes, absolutely. But I was very surprised when I won the Goncourt Prize, because I was 35. It was only my second book, and when they said my name, I thought it was a joke. For me, it was not possible. I was really, really surprised. So I just tried to enjoy the success, and I just tried to be here and enjoy the present moment, because you never know, it can disappear as quickly as it came. So the thing is to try to enjoy and try to use also the media, and to use this light you have on you to defend what is important for you, and try to give a voice to people who are struggling to express themselves. That's why I came back to Morocco and I try to interview so many women, because I have the chance to have this mediatization, so I can try to use it and give a voice to homosexuals in Morocco, to women who have abortion, to women who are not married and want to have a sexual life. So the thing is that you can try to use that for other people.
Do you feel that's a motivation? Was that always a motivation of yours? Because you were for a long time a journalist, as I was, and you worked in North Africa, in Morocco, and in Tunisia and Algeria, during the very difficult time of the Arab Spring. Do you feel that your first calling was journalism? Was that kind of testimony before you became a fiction writer?
I'm not sure. I think that through fiction, I discovered what I really wanted to do, and it is give back their dignity to people, have a real consideration for people, look at them and try to understand them, and to explore their inner soul and their intimacy. It is very difficult to do that when you're a journalist, because you don't have the time to spend a lot of time with people and to ask them very intimate questions. In journalism, and especially journalism I used to do, I had to go to a town and stay just 2 or 3 days. It was very quick and very difficult. So I love fiction because you have the time to explore things and to explore the complexity of human beings. And you have also, you force yourself not to judge your characters. It's not a trial. A novel is never a trial. And in journalism, I think it's different. So through the fiction and through my novels, I had a different way to ask questions to people and to tell the story of people. So I needed to become a novelist to be a better journalist, I think.
Well, you certainly have a way with words, to say the least. But let's talk about Sex and Lies a little bit more. Now, you published this in 2017 in French, and it is like everything you write, it's a huge success. But this is now a different era. I mean, you published it more or less before or during the beginning of the Me Too era. It is about women's rights, it's about women's sexual rights, very particularly in an area, North Africa, Morocco, where this is not talked about. I mean, you tackled taboos. Did you feel the power of the moment, that this was the right thing to do at the moment, was that time to write about this secret life of women?
Actually, I began to write this book in 2015, so it was long before the Me Too movement and all that. But I had the feeling that women in Morocco needed so much to speak out and to fight against this situation that was impossible to live. I felt something like an anger, like people were fed up with this hypocrisy and with this social pressure. So I felt that, but I was not conscious of how much people were suffering of this situation. So I had to go back to Morocco during the tour that I made for my first novel, Dans le Jardin de l'Aube, translated in English by the title Adèle. And then I discovered that a lot of women wanted to speak with me, and they came to me and they told me a lot of things about their intimacy. They told me a lot of secrets, and I was really surprised by how much they wanted to talk. I thought at the beginning that it was going to be difficult to ask them questions and that they would say, no, I don't want to answer. But the truth is it was difficult to make them stop speaking. And so that's why I decided to write this book, because I felt that they had so much to tell and so much to give. And the Me Too movement arrived after the book.
Amazing. And you've been given this gift of not just their stories, but their lives. They were handing you this amazing gift. And I suppose that, like any good journalist, any good writer, you get back to the hotel, write down everything.
Absolutely. They trusted me because I'm a novelist. And, there is, I was not conscious of that before, but people trust you when you are a writer. I don't know why, and they probably shouldn't trust a writer, because a writer will always steal your stories, but they do trust you because they think that if you can write a novel, if you have the ability to understand someone, the soul of someone, if you have the ability to write things about secrets, about the soul, about the secret thoughts of someone, they trust you, and so they can tell you a lot of secrets. And I think that's what happened. It's because I'm a novelist that people trusted me.
The way you write this book, which is as important now as it ever was and always will be, sadly, because there's a lot of pain and suffering, and also the description of the legal restrictions on women, particularly in Morocco. I mean, that is so shocking. You know, I think it's 2 years for adultery, in prison. I mean, it's really a long, long list of terrible things. Illegal abortions, hundreds of illegal abortions, backstreet abortions every day. And you outline this, you talk to these women, you take their conversations, and then you comment on them. So you embed each story in your framework, if you like. You're the one framing all this and giving also your story as well. Was this always the way you were going to do it? You have the verbatim stories of these women, these of all ages, all areas of life, and then your story. It's interwoven. So it's
Yeah, for me it was very natural to do that, because also I wanted to understand my own position on that, and I wanted to understand also the education that my parents gave me, because my parents, they were very free. They always told us that we could choose with whom we were going to get married, we could choose our religion. They never told us that we had to be a virgin before marriage, so they were very respectful. I have 2 sisters, and really my parents were very respectful, and I know that the education I received is not that common in a country like Morocco. So I wanted to understand why my parents acted like this, and why I felt sometimes so different from my friends and people I knew in Morocco. And I wanted to also to understand, is a woman who didn't receive the same education as me in Morocco, but who has now so many difficulties in her sexual life, is she going to believe in the same values as me? Is she going to want to fight for her rights too? What is her view on freedom? So I wanted in a certain way to confront my own point of view to the point of view of other women. And is the fact of being a woman is something that is going to help us understand each other, or do we have completely different destiny because we had different educations?
And what is your conclusion? Because in everything you write, you're never making a judgment. In your fiction, your non-fiction, your journalism, you never judge. You never moralize. You let these stories speak for themselves. So what in the end do you think with this book you've achieved or wanted to achieve?
My conclusion is very sad in a certain way. It's very melancholic. My conclusion is that I am very lucky because I left. And I live in a country where I am free, when I can have an abortion if I want to have an abortion, where I can be homosexual if I want to be homosexual. I can even marry another woman. No one is going to ask me question about, or no policeman is going to ask me question about my sexual life. So I am very, very much conscious of my privilege and of how lucky I am to live in a country where I don't have to speak about my religion, where no one is going to ask me if I pray, if I do Ramadan or not, if I believe in God or not. And even if it's very taboo to say that, especially in Morocco, I think it's important to say the truth. The truth is that I'm a happy immigrant, and I'm happy to live in a country like France. And I know that even in France, people will think that I shouldn't say something like that, because you are always supposed to be a victim when you are an immigrant. But in that point of view, I am not.
not just in France. Now, let's hear a reading from Sex and Lies, and you've chosen a particular passage. Now, these are new times, everyone, and we're not all able to read from our books, and so books are not even arriving. We're trying hard to make sure that the distribution and everything, but mine didn't arrive, and Leïla doesn't even have her own book with us, so she's going to read from her phone. Leïla, do tell us what you're going to read. And this is translated, by the way, into English. The whole book is translated by Sophie Lewis.
I'm going to read an extract of an interview, and this is the interview of a woman named Zhor, and I met her in Rabat. She's a young woman, and she's telling me about her life and her childhood. My father was ultra conservative. Once, when I was at secondary school, I plucked my eyebrows. He was in the middle of praying, but he stopped and said, "You should grow them back. I feel like I'm looking at a whore." I even remember this ridiculous time when he got angry because 2 of my teddies were cutting in a way he felt was immodest. Saying that, I knew they weren't always so conservative. My father only began to say daily prayers when he was 43. My mother covers her hair because my father makes her. She's a very submissive wife. I've always thought of her as a victim. She married my father at 16 to escape from her brother, who was extremely violent. It was my father who told her to wear a headscarf, to put trousers under the djellaba, to stop wearing makeup, even moisturizer. All through my childhood, they told me over and over that sleeping with people was wrong, but that never really stuck in my head. And as luck would have it, my first time was a rape by 3 men when I was 15. I was on my way from school to my evening class. The first man made me go into a room. He locked me in. I didn't understand at all. Another guy came and he raped me. I was a virgin and there was some blood, which surprised me, I think. For them, I was a whore. The third one finished off the job. I stood up and got dressed. I caught the bus and went back home. At the time, I think I was more afraid of my parents and everyone else than about the rape itself.
Very shocking, but extremely valuable that you were able to bring these words to this book as well. It's such an important book. And I can't stress, enough. It's really, really had a huge impact on me reading it too. I've read it as a PDF. I hasten to add, I've read it, but it's, I think it's interesting that the power of your journalism is, and I hadn't read your journalism before I'd read Lullaby or Adele, is so strong. And I wonder, will you always want to keep these two in tandem in some way? Because you have the power of both. I mean, you don't have to choose, you can do both.
Yes, I love to do both, and I think that when you are a writer, what is wonderful is that you can do a lot of different things, and writing novels is very difficult and very tiring also. So sometimes it's a good thing to try to do something else. Now I'm writing a TV show about migration, and I'm working in the UK actually, so I'm very, very happy to do it. I'm writing graphic novels. I'm going to write a movie also, so it's very good to try different things. I think it's very interesting for a writer.
Sex and Lies is actually a graphic novel as well, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
I know you didn't write it, but this is all part of this idea of making sure as many people in North Africa as well read and look at this book and take in these issues.
Especially young people. I wanted a lot of young people to read the book, so that's why I did the graphic novel. And in Morocco, I don't earn money on the graphic novel. I decided to sacrifice that so that the book is very cheap in Morocco. People can buy it very, very cheap in the street for like 1 or 2 euros. So it was a way for me to, permit the access to a lot of people, especially young.
Now, there is a good link, even though it was written after Adele. I mean, the fact that Adele, which was your first novel, published As These Things Happen in English literature, of course, English translation, published after Lullaby, the big, big success. Adele was written first, and it was called Dans le Jardin de l'Ogre in French, which is such a beautiful title. I wish they'd kept that title. But anyway, Adele in English, and translated by Sam Taylor. And this novel did extremely well in North Africa, in Morocco, as well as France. We'll talk about Adele, the actual story, which is about sexual addiction. It's about a woman who is unusually in fiction. It's usually men who have sexual addictions, but this time it's a woman, and she's called Adele, and she lives in France. Why do you think this book has done so well everywhere? How has it done so well in France? It's so many taboos in this book, you would have thought.
I think two reasons. The first is curiosity. People were very, very surprised and curious because an Arab woman, a woman from Maghreb, would write a book about sex, and a book that is very crude, very violent, very direct. And I think that for many people, and I don't really understand why, it was so surprising, as if Arab woman was supposed to be very prude and very shy. And one day I remember a French journalist asked me about that. How is it possible that a Moroccan woman would write such a book? And I said to him, Muslims have sex too. We have sex, and we have sexual life, and we have fantasies, and we have perversions and everything. So we can write books about that. So the first thing I think was curiosity. And I think that if the book had so much success in Morocco, Algeria, and Tunisia, it's because Adele is a liar. She's a hypocrite. She never says the truth to her husband, to her family. She has a secret life. And for her, sex goes with lies. Exactly like in my book, Sex and Lies. That's the story of Adele, Sex and Lies. Mm-hmm. So I think that a lot of women in Morocco could identify themselves to Adele. They know that if you want to have sex, if you want to have a sexual life, you have to lie. You have no choice but lying. So I think that maybe more women in Morocco than in France could identify themselves very deeply to the character of Adele.
Adele is a mother. She's a journalist. She's a wife, and she lives in Paris. And she's very bourgeois. Has everything she needs: Hermes scarves, champagne, all those things. And but she's not happy. She's a very, very unhappy woman. So this book is also about deep, dark despair. And I think that's also what touches people so much. Obviously, there is the titillation, if you like, also the fact that you write so well about sex. How difficult is it to write about sex and arousal and desire?
It is very difficult. I think that sex scenes are probably the most difficult things I had to write, because the vocabulary of sexuality is either glamorous, you have this very erotic and glamorous vocabulary, or pornographic. And I didn't want to write pornography, and I didn't want to write something that was too glamorous and too beautiful. I really wanted to describe sex in a very clinical way, very cold way. I wanted to be like a spectator behind the glass, and I'm just describing two human beings, but it could be two animals having sex. And it was very difficult to find the good tone to do that. But concerning Adele, I just wanted to say that, yes, she's an anti-hero. And what I think is interesting with Adele is that she is the exact opposite of the model we have today in terms of feminism. She's not an empowered woman. She doesn't want power. She doesn't want to succeed. She has no ambition. She doesn't want to earn money. She doesn't want to be a good journalist. She doesn't care about that. She's the exact opposite of empowerment. She doesn't want to be a subject. She wants to be an object. And for me, it was very interesting. What place do we give to this kind of woman? Because we have the tendency to judge this kind of woman in our society today. If you watch a TV show or a movie today, women are always courageous and brave and ambitious, and they want to fight for their children and for their life and for their values. What is a woman like Adele? She's a liar. She's a coward. She's an object. She wants to be treated like a whore. Sometimes she says I want to be fucked, and I want to marry a man who is rich and to do nothing. So I thought it was very interesting trying to explore this figure of a woman who is an anti-hero.
Everybody asks you, Leïla, why do you want to write such shocking books? What makes you do that? Are you describing your own inner anguish? Are you describing your own life and so on? Now, everybody asks that, so I've got to ask this question too. But why are you so drawn to this? I mean, is it also a literary device as well? Because you know it's going to shock us. You know we're going to want to read this book, which is what you want us to do anyway. You want us to read your books. Or are you exploring?
It has to do with what we were saying with about Morocco. When I was a child, my parents used to tell me, when you go outside, you shouldn't say that we drink alcohol at home. You shouldn't say that we don't do Ramadan. You shouldn't say that you are free to choose about your virginity, sexual life. So I had an education where I knew that I had to act like an hypocrite. And I was a very polite and very nice little girl, always saying what I was supposed to say. And I think that I write because I'm fed up with being polite. And I'm fed up with wearing a social mask. And when I'm with just my computer in my room of my own, like used to say Virginia Woolf, I can say the truth. I can say whatever I want, and I don't care if people are shocked, and I don't care if they don't like what they read. I am free. I am so free. So the thing is, I don't care about shocking or not shocking. I just care about being sincere as I can. So just telling the truth, because I think it's a burden to always act nice and be this. Again, Virginia Woolf, be this angel of the household, always nice, always smiling. So when I write, I'm not nice, I'm not soft, and I'm not polite.
Glad to hear it. Now, if we go to Lullaby, which it was your big bestseller, I mean, it's sold over 1 million copies now. It's been translated into 40 languages, I think, unless there are more since I last read about that. But it projected you to this huge celebrity status. Was it more, or was it more difficult or easier to be yourself, this outspoken, wonderful self that you've just been describing? Or do you find you have to keep a little bit back now?
No.
You're a public figure now. You're a major public figure in France.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes it's not very easy, because sometimes you don't really know who you are anymore, because you speak a lot, you speak very often, and you speak about yourself, and you speak about how you write and why you write, and sometimes you hear yourself and you're like, you don't recognize yourself, you don't really know who you are anymore. And I think that a writer needs a lot of silence. You can't say everything. You have to keep some secrets. It's very, very important. And you have also to be a little bit secretive, and sometimes to say no. I'm not going to do interviews anymore. I'm not going to travel. I'm not going to go out for this or for that. So I learned that through this years, but at the beginning I was not totally aware of that. But when you have a big success like that, sometimes you feel very lost.
Yeah. Now, in that time, of course, shortly after the publication of that novel, President Macron asked you to become a spokesperson, or first of all, he asked you to be Minister of Culture for France, which you declined. But you are very involved with his work. You're a spokesperson for the Francophonie across the world, for French culture and literature and so on. Is that a role you enjoy?
Yes, I do, because it's a role that is very important for me as a French citizen, but also as a Moroccan, because I come from a family where we used to speak French. My parents were Francophone, and my parents were very open to other cultures and to other religion, etc. And in Morocco now, with the conservatives and with the Islamists, it's very difficult to say that to people, that you love speaking French and that you think that other cultures are very good and that you are interested in Judaism or Christianity. And I think it is very, very important to defend diversity and to say, yes, I'm a Moroccan, but I'm also a woman who speaks French, and I'm also a woman who loves to travel, and I don't have only one culture and one book and one language. I have many, and I think we should defend that.
And it's tied very much into the debate, as it is in this country and many other countries, into the debate about colonialism. I mean, the English speakers in colonial countries, French speakers in French-speaking Morocco and so on too. It's a really difficult topic, but as you say, the bottom line for all of us is that it's about multiculturalism and diversity. It's about all those things.
And you know, of course, colonization was a terrible time, very violent and very unfair. And I just published my last book, Le Pays des Autres, is about this particular period. But the truth is that we, the children of people who were colonized, my mother were colonized and my father also, we are very cosmopolite. We speak a lot of languages. We had to deal with other cultures in our own country. So, of course, it was terrible. But the truth is that today we can use that as a force, as something valuable. We don't have, I don't like the idea of always playing the role of victim. I believe in resilience, and I believe in fighting. If you only think of yourself as a victim, you will go nowhere. It is very important also try to use those terrible things to make beautiful things.
With Lullaby, which we've talked about a little bit, but it's such an important book to talk about. And I know you've spoken so much about it. You probably feel there's nothing new to say, but there is always something new to say about it. And it is, for me, the book that it profoundly moved me and profoundly shocked me. I didn't know anything about you, as I said. I didn't know, where you came from. I didn't know you were Moroccan. I didn't know anything. And in fact, you touch very lightly on all those issues in this book. It is the novel of what they call the killer nanny novel. And the fact that it was given one single name, Lullaby, in English, as Adele was in English as well. But in fact, the French title is Les Chansons Douces, sweet song or lullaby, and in American English it's The Perfect Nanny. So you were put into that kind of Gone Girl kind of mode, the thriller. It is a thriller, but it's so much more. It's about womanhood, it's about being a mother, it's about the conflict of work and success and all these other things. It's about balancing lives, isn't it? Tell us a little bit about Lullaby and why you wanted to write this novel.
When I had my first son, I was very, very anxious. I was always afraid, all the time. I was always worried that something could happen to him. And I asked my mother, but how is it possible to live with that, with this fear? I can't wake up every morning with that. I want to stay with him all the time and to look at him, and I don't want him to go out and to have a life because I'm too afraid that something is going to happen to him. And my mother said to me, you have to live with it. You have to accept that for your whole life now you're going to be worried and you're going to live with that. And I was 30 years old, and so I decided to hire a nanny because I had to work. And my husband and I, we interviewed nannies, and I found this situation so weird. I was 30 and I was interviewing women who were 50, 55, coming from other countries, women who sometimes had to face wars and a lot of difficulties in their lives. And I was this very an inexperienced woman with a little baby, and I was going to hire them and to pay them and to tell them what to do. And I thought that this situation was it was not comfortable at all. I felt so weird, and I wanted to tell that, and I wanted to write about that, about this nightmare I was having all the time, that something could happen to my child, and about the fact that this nanny, at the same time, I felt weird employing her, and at the other time, it was very easy for me to count on her. It was very good to have her because I could have a life. I can go out, I can have drinks with my friends, and I have this possibility not to be a mother all the time because I love being a mother. But to be really honest, sometimes also I have the nostalgia of the woman I used to be before. This woman who was not worried all the time, and this woman who had time and who could do whatever she wants without feeling so guilty, and to whom no one is going to say, what, you are outside and your children, where are they? You're not taking care of your children. So yeah, I wanted to tell about all the ambiguous feelings you have when you are a mother. You at the same time want to be a perfect mother, and sometimes you don't want to be a mother at all.
Well, obviously, I'm going to say this to everybody. Make sure that you do read Lullaby and Adele, and also Sex and Lies. And I know that you've got another, a trilogy awaiting us as well. But you just spoke about, I want to talk to end this. Unfortunately, you know, we haven't got that much time. But I want to talk to you about the kind of woman you are to end. You've just been speaking about sometimes you long to be the kind of woman you were. Now, we're in very unusual circumstances now. You and I are in our homes, and we are with our families, and we are doing, in many ways, many of the traditional things that women and men have to do, which is cook and bake and clean and do everything, and write and work as well. What kind of woman are you at the moment in lockdown during this pandemic?
I am a very selfish woman, to be really honest. I don't cook. I don't do anything. My husband does everything. I read, I watch movie, I play with my children. I do the class for my son, but that's it. I'm very selfish, and again, it has to do with Virginia Woolf and with this wonderful text she wrote about the angel of the house. When I read this book, I understood that you have two choices. You can try to be a perfect woman, perfect mother, and to please everyone. You can sacrifice yourself all the time, thinking that other people are more important than yourself. Or you can think that the most important thing in your life is writing and doing what you want to do. And in this case, you will have to disappoint a lot of people. But I think that if you want to be a free woman, you have to accept the idea of disappointing people, disappointing your children, disappointing your husband, disappointing all people around you. If you don't accept that, you will never be free. So I am a selfish woman, but a free woman.
I would like to say hooray. I don't know whether anybody's listening. Maybe all of you out there disagree, but I say hooray there. Now, Leïla, what do you find, though, that this time is good for writing? I mean, people talk about, you know, this being a great time for writers theoretically, because you can be creative and every writer loves isolation and so on. Is it a good time for you?
Not really, because first of all, because reality is too big now. The reality of the crisis and of the virus, it's here all the time. So it's very difficult to have a distance with reality. And when you write, you have to have this kind of distance. So it's very difficult. And the other thing is that I am not alone. Yes, I am in a kind of isolation, but I have my children, I have my husband. So I miss my solitude very, very much.
Now, very quickly, because we are going to end here, but you've spoken about Virginia Woolf a few times. You and I adore Virginia Woolf. We're not in Charleston at the moment. We will make that pilgrimage together when we can. I would love to do that. But I loved Virginia Woolf's diaries, and I know that you love her diaries as well. Is it true that you know, sometimes that you once had them next to your bed all the time? You'd be able to dip into.
You know what? My computer is on the book of Virginia Woolf. I use it for my computer. So it's a diary. I have it with me all the time, and even when I travel, I have it with me because she is my best friend. I understand her very much, and she understands me. Since I was 16, I've never had a friend like Virginia. She is my friend, and I know exactly what she means. And yeah, we are very, very close, the both of us, and she helped me so many times when I was lonely, and when I didn't know what to do, and when I was having bad thoughts about success and about celebrity and about writing. When I have some jealousy or bad things like that, I read Virginia and I think, okay, if Virginia felt that, I can feel it. It's not that bad. So yes, she's my friend.
There's nothing else to say except thank you so much, Leïla.
Thank you very much, Rosie.
Really
Thank you.
fabulous to talk to you. And I must say at this point too, I'd like to thank Susanna Stevenson, who's the artistic director of the Charleston Festival at home and in reality. Without her running wild these last few weeks, this festival would not have happened here online, and I wouldn't have been able to meet Leïla. I've been so looking forward to it, and I've just met you. We've had a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much, Leïla.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.